whenever there is a news related to or a national issue related to certain bodies, definitely there is going to be a question related to that body in your prelims examination. In the current prelims or prelims 2021, there will be chances of election commission. There is a high chance for election commission. There is a chance for National Human Rights Commission. There is a chance for CBI, etc. We will be compiling all those data in the coming days. We'll be giving that to you. Do not worry about that. You just focus on the basics, understand the basics, and we will be providing you with the necessary support for current affairs and all other necessary topics. So your focus should be on understanding the basics. Whenever you learn basics, try to use this strategy, especially from the Thursday onwards. We will be focusing on the second part of Indian polity, that is how system works, or how the executive works, or what are the components of executives, parliament and judiciary. So at that time you should be focusing on these things. You may seem that, or people will be saying that parliament is too difficult to understand or too difficult to remember. That is not the case. You should not read all the nuances of parliament. Rather, you just focus on the key officers. What are the functions of key officers, or what are the privileges of key officers? That will be the question that is going to be in your prelims examination, and how the generally how the system works. For example, recently there was a news related to national non-confidence motion. So there can be a chance that no confidence motion will be in your prelims examination. So remember that whatever there is in your newspaper can be reflected in your prelims paper also. If that is a national news, or if that is covered by a national media, then there is a high chance that question will be in your prelims examination. For example, last time in 2019 examination, in Kerala, there was a case of death of an elephant, a pregnant elephant in Kerala, and nationally the entire national media covered the issue. And what you got in reality, or what you got in prelims examination, was the pregnancy or the pregnancy period of elephant and related question statements were there. So there is a whatever covered in national media, which is a little bit curious, or which initiates curiousness in people, definitely there is a chance that question will be in the prelims examination. Remember that, read the newspaper, also go through the current affairs materials we provide. Also try to read, get your own idea, so that you can get all the ideas related to current affairs and connect it with the preparation. So do remember that. Okay, am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So okay, so we will be moving to the current affairs part. The first part, we have identified certain topics from January 2020 to current June 2021. We will be compiling all those data. We will be having recurrent value addition classes in the coming weeks. And first thing you need to understand is, do not give more time on current affairs. Do not think that if we read multiple current affairs materials, then we can get multiple answers, or we can get maximum marks out of prelims examination. That is not the correct sense. There is a chance that there will be 20 to 25, maximum 30 questions will be from current affairs, and around 70 questions will be from your basics or fundamentals. So try to focus on basics and give maximum of 1/3 of your time. Do not work on current affairs. That is not necessary for prelims examination. Rather, you should be very clear and very thorough in your basics, especially NCERTs and standard textbooks. For Indian polity, you should go for Lakshmikant and all. Okay. So first topic is, sorry. So first topic is 10th schedule. 10th schedule. All these topics are taken from newspaper. So even though you have not started your preparation for these topics, do not worry. We can definitely come to that point in the coming days. So just go through this. First of all, 10th schedule. The first thing you need to understand about 10th schedule is that it was initiated with 52nd Amendment of 1985. It was initiated. The amendment that is related to 10th schedule is 52nd Amendment, and it provided for the disqualification of members of parliament, be it MPs or MLAs, on the ground of defection from one political party to other. That is a shift, or you can say that the horse trading happening in parliament, to prevent the horse trading happening in parliament or legislature. That is shift from one political party to other. That is, it is the main objective of 10th schedule. That is to prevent the shifting of or transfer of one member of parliament from one political party to other. That is, it provided for the disqualification of member. The first thing is it is related to the 52nd Amendment, and later 91st Amendment also provided certain amendment to the 10th schedule, and says that disqualification, 91st Amendment says that disqualification on ground of defection not to apply in a case of split. If the political party is splitting into two, it should not apply. That is 10th schedule, that is anti-defection law should not apply. That is 10th schedule anti-defection law. Okay. These are the basic thing you need to know about 10th schedule. So next one is, what are the criteria for this disqualification? What are the criteria for this disqualification? First of all, if he voluntarily gives up his membership of a political party, that is voluntarily gives up his membership in a political party. Consider a person winning from BJP ticket, BJP party ticket, and after winning in, getting into parliament, he says that he is resigning from the membership. So he definitely disqualified. Only exception is that speaker can do this. If speaker voluntarily gives up his membership of such political party, that is not an issue. It happens only for other members. Okay, first voluntarily he can gives up his membership, it can result in disqualification. Second one is that if he votes or abstains from voting in house contrary to the opinion or direction given by the political party, voting pattern, or for example, a party ABC says that you must vote for a bill, but the member of parliament or a member of legislative assembly voted against the bill, then he can be disqualified on the basis of anti-defection law. First one is voluntary, second one is voting, and somebody's mic is on. Okay. Next one is an exception given to the voting. That is, a person voting against the direction given by the political party will be under the anti-defection law and will be getting a disqualification from the member of legislative assembly or parliament. But there is an exception. If he gets a permission from the party within 15 days, within 15 days, if he gets a permission from the political party for that, he says that he voted against the bill and gets a permission from the party, that is not an issue. Or party says that is not an issue, no problem, you can continue. Definitely he can continue as a MP or MLA. So remember that for voluntarily giving up his membership, speaker is an exemption. For voting against the direction given by the party, there is a 15 days exemption. Okay, so remember this thing. Okay, remember these the clauses and also the exemptions. And there is another one. This is a member winning from the political ticket. There is also certain clauses regarding independent members also. An independent member of a house becomes disqualified to remain a member of house if he joins any political party after such election. That is, independent member cannot join a political party after the election. If he joins a political party, then definitely he will be disqualified. Okay. And generally, there is another certain type of exceptions are there. There are certain exceptions generally available. That is, a merger takes place when 2/3 of party members have agreed to such member. For example, a party is joining, merging with other, or a party is splitting up and all. Then the 2/3 of MLAs or MPs is supporting that movement. Then there is no issues. There will not be a case for disqualification. And again, if a member after being elected as presiding officer, what I said earlier, that is Speaker of the Lok Sabha or Speaker of Legislative Assembly, as a presiding officer, he can voluntarily give up the membership of the party. And also, another one related to a case related to 10th schedule is that Quixote Holohan case. Quixote Holohan case. In this case, it says that Supreme Court said that judicial review, there is judicial review in the case of defection or the decision taken by the speaker. Or there is judicial review for the decision taken by speaker. Okay, Quixote Holohan case is also related to the 10th schedule. What you should be doing is that you should be revising these things. Okay, you should be going through the basic content, and also you should also revise these things and add certain contents from the and also. These are the basic things that is necessary for answering the question from anti-defection law, 10th schedule of the Constitution. You got the point? Any doubts? Any doubts?
Hello, sir.
Oh.
So can a nominated member join a political party in Rajya Sabha?
Hello?
Hello, sir. Can a nominated member from Rajya Sabha, can he join a political party?
Yes, he can join a political party, but I think there is a time limit also. I don't know the actual time limit. I will check and update in the group. Okay.
Sir, within 6 months.
Yes, within 6 months, I think. I will update that. Yeah, 6 months is. Yes. Okay, any other doubt? Okay, we'll be going to the next topic, that is related to the reservation. Article 16 and reservation. Okay, you already would have completed fundamental rights. What is the idea related to Article 16, or what is the provision of Article 16? This under? What is the provision of? Yes, right to equality. And Article 16 says that equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Equality in the matters of public employment. Remember that, because there is a case for, or cases going on, and there was multiple news related to reservation regarding the EWS criteria. So there can be a question from 2020 onwards. There is a high chance of a question from Article 16. So read and go through Article 16 very well. That is very important. So the basic thing that is represented in Article 16 is that no citizen can be discriminated against or be ineligible for any employment or office under the state on the grounds only on religion, exemptions. That is, there should not be a discrimination based on religion, race, caste, sex, descent, place of birth, residence. So these are the criteria given for avoiding, or there should not be a discrimination based on these criteria. Remember the exemptions given in right to equality, right to freedom, etc., or the reasonable restrictions given under freedom of expression and all. Remember that. That is very important. There can be a question related to the criteria of right to equality and all. Okay. So these are the basic idea, that is religion, race, caste, sex, descent, place of birth, and residence. And there are 4 exceptions. Four exceptions are there. First one is Parliament can prescribe residence as a condition for certain employment or appointment in a state or union territory or local level. That is, Parliament can provide for residence as a criteria for certain jobs. For example, in the case of Andaman and Nicobar, or in the case of Lakshadweep, in the case of Ladakh, Jammu Kashmir, etc. That is, Parliament can provide for Parliament can prescribe that residence is a criteria. And also, the state can provide for reservation of appointments or post in favor of backward class. That is a reservation, that positive affirmation, that is reservation or positive affirmation, that is reservation. That is, Parliament can reserve certain seats for backward classes. Okay, that is not adequately represented in the state. And also, a law can provide that incumbent of an office related to religious or denominational institutions or a member of its governing body should belong to a particular religion. For example, there was some board and all. We can say that this religion could only, or the members of this committee or the governing body should be from this religion. That is, religion can be given as a criteria for employment in the case of a religious institution or religious governing body, etc. Like there was some board and all in Kerala. And also, the state is permitted to make provision for the reservation up to 10% for the appointment of EWS. There are four criteria. Final one is EWS. EWS up to 10% of the total vacancies. Okay, these are the four criteria. That is, first one is Parliament can provide for residence as a criteria. Second one is reservation given for backward classes. Third one is religion, or for religious institutions or governing bodies of religion. Religion can be a criteria for eligibility. And finally, EWS, that is, there can be a 10% reservation for economically weaker section. Got the point? I will be taking points from the news only. You will also add the content from Lakshmi and all. Okay. Am I clear? Article 16.
Yes, sir.
Next one is related topic or topic related to this only, that is NCBC and EWS reservation is there. That is related to Article 16. First one is NCBC, National Commission for Backward Classes. That is, in 1993, it was made as a statutory body. 1993, it was statutory body, and with 102nd Amendment, Constitutional Amendment Act of 2018 conferred it a constitutional status and also enlarged its function, and it included Article 338B in the Constitution. So there can be a question. Article 338 is related to, that is NCBC. 102nd Constitutional Amendment is related to, that is also NCBC. It was a statutory body in the beginning, that is in 1993 it was a statutory body. In the 2018 it was made a constitutional body with the help of 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Remember that. Okay. And again, EWS is also a similar topic or related topic to the reservation, Article 16. That is 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act is related to EWS. That is 103rd Amendment Act of 2019. The central government issued an order providing 10% of reservation to the economically weaker section. Okay. Clear? This is related to Article 16. Okay. We need any clarification on any of the points? So next one related to current affairs. Our next current affairs topic is that RTI, PM Care, Public Authority, etc. So first of all, RTI. Okay. There was multiple cases and multiple newses related to whether PM Care comes under the purview of RTI. So we will be analyzing RTI, then what is public authority and what is PM case. We do not require the analysis for PM case, we just require the basics. What is RTI, what is a public authority or defined public authority under RTA, and what consists of, or what is the development or the procedures enshrined in the development of AMKs and all. We will be focusing on that only. That is first one, right to information. The objective of the act, what are the objectives? There can be a question, what are the objectives of RTA Act? The objective of the act includes to empower citizens, to promote transparency and accountability, to contain corruption, to enhance people's participation in democratic process. Remember that first one, empower the citizens, that is very obvious. Second one, to promote transparency and accountability, that is also obvious. Third one, contain corruption, that is also obvious. And fourth one, to enhance people's participation in democratic process, that is also an objective of RTA, to enhance people's participation in the democratic process. So remember that there are four major objectives mentioned in this act itself: empower citizens, promote transparency, contain corruption, and enhance people's participation in the democratic process. Okay. So first one, RTA. There are certain important sections in the RTA Act. For example, Section 2 defines the information, or information means any material in form of records, documents, memos, emails, etc. So you just understand that Section 2F is related to the definition of information. It defines what is information, or what is the information that is available with the government. What are the information available with the government? Defines the idea of information. For example, next one is Section 2J. 2J, it defines right to information. What is right to information, or what all consists of right to information? For example, they says that right to information means the right to information accessible under the Act, which is held or under the control of public authority, or whatever information defined in Article 2F, or how to access that. And it includes, or right to information includes, first one, inspection of work or records. That is inspection of works. You can inspect the work. Second one, you can take notes from the documents or records available. You can also get certified samples. Recently, in the past few years, especially in the past 2-3 years, there was a tendency from UPSCs that they will be asking certain basic ideas in a different way. What are the rights available under Right to Information Act, or what are the features of this coalition, or what are the features of international partnership, or what are the ideas mentioned under RCP. There will be some very minute content will be there. So remember this. These are the rights available for you to do. That is inspection of a work, take notes from the documents, get certified samples. And fourth one is obtaining information in the form of floppies, tapes, video cassettes, CDs, electronic mode, etc. All the electronic, and you can also get the information as PDF. That is electronic mode is also already defined. You can get the information as a video file. So these are also important roles that can be, or important evaluation you can be doing in under the Right to Information Act. Okay, I remember that also. And Section 4, that is one of the important. This must be. This can be used in your mains also. Section 4 of the Right to Information Act, that is RTA Act, requires suo motu disclosure of information. It focuses on suo motu disclosure. That is, if a public agent or public authority wants to disclose the information that is available with the office, or if a public authority says that this information should be available with the people, they can suo motu disclose. For example, recently the UFO related files were, or X files were released by the US governments. Similar to the action, similar to that, there is no request for releasing X files. They suo motu disclose the files related to UFOs, the unidentified flying objects, or X files related to that. Similarly, Indian Public Authority can also release these documents. So motor disclosure section 4. Then section 8 is one there. Section 8 is there. That is exemptions. What are the exemptions under RTA, or what are the agencies, or which agencies need not provide documents under the Right to Information Act? For example, RAW is there, IB is there, CBI is there, NIA is there. These agencies need not provide information under right to information as requested by an individual, because this is national secrets and it is covered under Official Secrets Act. Official Secrets Act. Section 8 is the exemptions provided under RTA Act. Okay, remember, exemptions provided under RTA Act. The Act also provides for appointment of Information Commission. Act also provides for appointment of Information Commissioners at the central state level. All these ideas can be identified from Lakshmikant, and also you should not worry about the current affairs related to the Information Commissioners or that. You just follow on Lakshmikant, that is enough. And recently there was a change in the composition of information or RTA commissioners, information commissioners, CIC, etc. So you should also understand certain ideas related to that also. For example, I'll be going to composition later. First, we will complete the features, other features of RTA. That is within time period to disclose or time period to give the documents. That is within 30 days, a normal request for information should be given or completed. And if that is a life-threatening request, or if the life of an individual is threatened due to the request, or if the life of an individual is related to that request, then it must be released within 2 days. And if they are not releasing, or if they fail to release the orders or release the information within these periods, that is for normal 30 days and for a life-threatening one within 2 days, if they fail to give out this information, there will be a penalty of 250 per day. There will be a penalty of 250 per day. Remember that also. And the change brought in 2019, there was a change brought in 2019, that is RTA 2019 amendment. That is under RTA 2019 amendment, there earlierly or before the 2019 amendment, the Central Chief Information Commissioner and Information Commissions had the tenure equivalent to Election Commission, or they were having the powers equivalent to Election Commission. After RTA Amendment Act of 2019, it brought that the tenure or the time appointment of the Information Commissioners will be for such time as may be prescribed by the central government. That is, central government can prescribe the time period or tenure of each and every Information Commission. There is a major change. That was a major change. And also the salaries, allowances will be prescribed by central government. Salaries, allowance, etc. will be prescribed by central government. And finally, amendment also allowed that central government to control Information Commissioners through rules and regulations. Basically what happened is that this Information Commission became a department of or equivalent to a department of central government. Okay, you should also understand the changes. Right to Information Amendment Act 2019. Okay, so you got the point, the basics of RTA Act and Amendment Act of 2019. Any doubts in that? Any doubts in that? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
1 minute. Hello. Any doubts regarding this RTA? You should understand the basics of RTA. That is very critical for your prelims as well as means, very critical. So remember these basic things. Okay. So next one is who consists or what consists of public authority defined by Right to Information Act. So public authority means any authority or body or institution of self-government established under Constitution. It can be a constitutional body. It can be a, 1 minute, it can be a constitutional body. It can be a constitutional body. Second one, it can be made under any law made by Parliament or State Legislative Assembly. That is a statutory body. And it can be created by a notification. That is an executive body or non-constitutional, non-statutory executive body. You can say that executive body, executive order. If it is made by an executive order, that is also that will also be coming under the public authority. And fourth one, if it is publicly financed or financed by government also, that is, it is body owned or financed, substantially financed by government. And finally, non-governmental organizations financed by government or non-governmental organization getting government funding. So these are the authorities that is required to give information under Right to Information Act. That is constitutional bodies, statutory bodies, executive bodies, the bodies financed directly by or owned or financed directly by government, and also NGOs financed by the government. Okay. And also recently the issue was PM CARES and related issues. What is the issue with PM CARES? Prime Minister's office denied that right to information cannot be requested for PM CARES fund. And reason for this denial was the information was denied on the basis that it is disproportionately divert the resources from the office. And actually it says that under section 7 there is another section. This is also important. This is related to, or this was in news related to the PMKS and related right to information request. So in this section, under section 7, it says that an information shall ordinarily be provided in the form in which it sought unless it would disproportionately divert the resources from public authorities. That is, information need not be shared if the requested information or getting or handling the information requested by the individual will disproportionately divert the resources of the office. For example, let's say the budget of an office is 10,000 and 9,000 rupees is required to get all the information requested by the individual, then there is no requirement for give out that information spending all this money. That is a basic idea, and this was used in PM case, or this was used by PMO to give out the data regarding the PM case. Okay, so remember this section also, that is important for your prelims examination. Okay, you got the idea? Any doubts? Any doubts?
Okay.
Okay, next one, review petition. Next one, review petition. This is not much important, but in the 2017, 18, etc., UPSC asked something related to the articles of Supreme Court were taken and asked a direct question. So remember that the review petition is related to Article 137 or Article 137 of the Constitution. Says that Supreme Court has the power to review any of its judgment. Supreme Court can review any of its judgment to correct a patent error or a minor mistake of inconsequential importance. Import. Okay. So idea is that Supreme Court can review the petitions or review the judgments that is made by Supreme Court or any other courts. That is the idea. Article 137. Remember that. And there are certain criteria for review petition also. That is, it should be filed within 30 days. It should be filed within the 30 days of final judgment. And in certain circumstances, court can give away or court can increase the number of days also. Remember that, because if there is a strong reason for that, court can also permit review petition after 30 days also. But primarily the basic gap is that 30 days. Okay. And next one is the Supreme Court has provided certain conditions for seeking a review petition. First one is discovery of new evidence. That is very important. Second one is a mistake or error made by the record, or if there is an issue in record or so. And finally, the sufficient reasons that can be identified by Supreme Court. If Supreme Court thinks that there are certain other reasons, so that we should be changing the judgment made by or earlier bench, then also Supreme Court can take. Basically, understand that if there is a changing evidences or if there is a identified mistakes in record, that can allow review petition. But you just need to understand the Article 137, or Article 137 is related to review petition. And there is also another case, Ruba Hura versus Ashok Bohra case. Ruba Hura versus Ashok Bohra case related to review petition. Okay, there is a case related to review petition, that is Ruba Hura versus Ashok Bohra. In this case, Supreme Court developed the idea of curative petition. They given a new petition was initiated in Ruba Hura and Ashok Bohra case. That is a curative petition which can be heard after a review petition is dismissed. That is, first of all, normal appeal and all, normal thing is there. Then there is a review petition. Then there is curative petition. Curative petitions were initiated after the Ruba Hura case and Ruba Hura versus Ashok Bohra case. Okay, in 2002. That is not necessary, but remember that. Just remember that. The basic important thing that can be in your question is Article 137 is related to, that is related to review petition. Remember that. At least remember the Article 137 and its basic idea. Okay, am I clear? Any doubts? Okay, next one, Finance Commission and articles related to Finance Commission. Next topic is Finance Commission. You will learn about Finance Commission, go through the basics of Finance Commission. Yes, 280, Article 280. 280 is related to Finance Commission. So remember the basic article. That is, first thing you need to understand is Article 280 provides for a Finance Commission as a quasi-judicial body, and it should be constituted by the President every 5th year or even earlier. That is, it is not after 5 years, it is before 5 years. 5 years, or President should create or constitute a Finance Commission on or before the expiry of 5 years. So remember that it is before 5 years. There was a question in 2013 or 14 where they gave a statement that Finance Commission must be constituted by Parliament after the expiry of 5 years. That is not correct. It is before 5 years. Okay, remember that also. Article 280 is the article, and it is a quasi-judicial body. It is a quasi-judicial body. Next one is Article 275. That is also related to this. There is a related topic, Article 275, that deals with the statutory grants. That is, grant that must be transferred to states on the recommendation of Finance Commission. That is Article 275. that is statutory. That is Article 275 empowers the Parliament to make grants to the states. Statutory, that is Parliament will be making the transfer, or Parliament will be empowering to transfer the grants. That is why it is known as statutory grants, and it is charged on Consolidated Fund of India. It is charged on Consolidated Fund of India, and statutory grant is given on the recommendation of Finance Commission. And similarly, there is another one, Article 282. This was the basis for the erstwhile Planning Commission. Article 282 empowers the center and states to make any grants for any public purpose. For example, if there is a requirement for NHAI to develop a road in Kerala or any other states, this fund will be transferred. That is, Article 282 will be known as discretionary grants. That is, it will be based on the discretion of central government. On the discretion of government can transfer any amount of money for a state or to a state or to any organ for the public good. So remember this: Article 280, Article 275, and Article 282. And remember this idea, that is on or before 5 years. That is enough for Finance Commission. All other ideas are very easy to understand. Okay. Clear?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, ഫിനാൻസ് കമ്മീഷൻ എന്തുകൊണ്ട് ക്വാസി ജുഡീഷ്യൽ ബോഡി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്?
Finance Commission has the power to call upon ministers and all. They can also inquire into the current conditions of economy. They can call any officials from the office in the country.
എൻക്വയറി ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നതുകൊണ്ടാണ്.
Yes, എൻക്വയറി ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ അവർക്കൊരു അവർ പറയുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങളും വാലിഡ് ആണ്. ഇപ്പം if Finance Commission says that this must be done, അത് ചെയ്യണം. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ചെയ്തില്ലെങ്കിൽ അതിന്റെ റീസൺ ഫിനാൻസ് കമ്മീഷനോട് സെൻട്രൽ ഗവൺമെന്റ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പാർലമെന്റ് പറയണം. അവർക്കൊരു അതോറിറ്റി ഉണ്ട്.
So our decisions are binding on the government.
Yes. Binding, there can be some reason. Suppose if government is not taking any action based on the Finance Commission's report, then they must be answering to the Finance Commission. There is not a binding clause, but they must be answering to the Finance Commission. That is the actual clause given in the Constitution.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any other doubts? Okay. Then we will be moving to
State Finance Commission. They powers are.
Illa. State Finance Commission has a different power. It was formed under PRIs only. But they can also recommend certain ideas related to transferring money from state government to these PRIs. പക്ഷെ കുറച്ചും കൂടെ അത് ഡിഫറെന്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ളൊരു കൺസെപ്റ്റ് ആണ്. ഇത്രയും സ്ട്രോങ് ആയ ഒരു ഓഫീസായിട്ട് വരുന്നില്ല സ്റ്റേറ്റ് ഫിനാൻസ് കമ്മീഷൻ. ബട്ട് സിമിലർ വർക്കാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. Okay, I think that's all regarding Finance Commission. Next one is also very important, Civil Services Board. Civil Services Board. Civil Services Board. It was formed under the recommendation or direction of Supreme Court. That is, Supreme Court in 2013 recommended or directed for creating Civil Services Board. The major aim is to insulate the bureaucracy from political interferences. That is, Civil Services Board should be considering the transfers and postings of bureaucrats. That is, Civil Services Board will be having an objective of giving recommendations or giving suggestions for transfers and all. That is, Supreme Court in 2013 said that there is a lot of political interferences in the bureaucracy or working of bureaucracy. To reduce that, to reduce the political interferences through transfers or postings of bureaucrats, there should be a Civil Services Board. That is the basic development of Civil Services Board. And as per rule, all states should have Civil Services Board to decide on transfers and postings of bureaucrats. That is, every state should have a Civil Services Board to decide on transfers and posting rules. And also, it is mandated to decide on the transfer of a civil servant before completion of his or her tenure. For example, consider somebody is appointed in some region for certain fixed period. If they are transferring before that, or if they are getting certain transfer orders from the government before the expiry of their tenure, Civil Services Board can inquire into that. So Civil Services Board is basically a board that analyzes or considers the transfers and postings of bureaucrats. Next thing is, in this Civil Services CSB, you just need to understand that it is formed with the direction of Supreme Court in 2013. The aim is to manage the transfers, appointments, etc. Third one, there is a composition. What is the composition of Civil Services Board? First one is that it is headed by Chief Secretary of State. Chief Secretary of State. It is headed by Chief Secretary of State, and it has senior most additional Chief Secretary of Chairman, Board of Revenue, Financial Commissioner, or an officer of equivalent rank as the status member. There will be some senior members or senior bureaucrats in that. In addition to that, there will be Principal Secretary or Secretary to Department of Personnel in the state government as the member secretary. There is Principal Secretary or Department of Personnel or Secretary to Department of Personnel will be acting as the member secretary. Remember that the first thing you need to understand is these things. It was formed in 2013 on the recommendation or direction given by Supreme Court. The aim is to manage the affairs related to transfers and all. And third one is it is headed by Chief Secretary. Understand these three things. At least these things can definitely help you to answer the question. Okay. Clear? Any doubts? Just focus on basic things. Okay. Prelims is actually prelims is very easy to do. You can definitely clear prelims if you are preparing in a right strategy. Okay, any doubts? I think there is no doubt. Then we'll be moving to the next topic, that is Committee for Reforming Criminal Law. There is a committee suggested for reforming criminal law. Just remember the committee. Committee for Reforming Criminal Law or Criminal Law Reforms. Committee for inquiring into criminal law reforms, that is Ranbir Singh Committee. Ranbir Singh Committee. Ranbir Singh Committee. Remember that. That is also that is what you require. Ranbir Singh Committee, and certain other committees that for mains you can go for Malimat Committee. This is also related to criminal law reforms. I think it was in 2003, and there is another one, Madhav Menon Committee. It was in 2000. Madhav Menon Committee. It was in 2007. These are the three committees related to. This is the new one, Ranbir Singh Committee. This is 2003. This is 2007. Malimat and Madhav Menon Committee. Okay, that is enough for criminal law. Next one is Governor and Governor's powers. This was related to various issues happening throughout the country, or the various conflicts between elected members and the appointed governor. That was recently there was multiple cases related to the governor, especially in Maharashtra and all, Kerala and all. Different cases were there. So try to remember and understand governor. Governor is very essential for you for this prelims. For that, governor should be learned. That can be a question from governor. Okay. So governor is basically a nominal executive in the state. Governor is nothing but a nominal executive in the state, and they will be he'll be heading the real executive headed by Chief Minister. Okay, and it says that governor has to exercise his powers and functions with the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. That is, Council of Ministers headed by Chief Minister. That is, governor has to exercise his powers and duties with the support of, or with the aid and advice of, Council of Ministers headed by Chief Minister, except in certain matters in which he has certain discretions. Okay, so first thing you need to know is that what are the functions and powers of governor. Also, you should know the discretions or where governor is getting discretion. For example, president only has situational discretion. Governor has both constitutional and situational discretions. Go through that in Lakshmigan. You will get all that content. For example, reserving a bill to president is a constitutional discretion provided for governor. For example, another one is selecting or calling a member of calling a political party to formulate a government after an election with no results. For example, for a coalition government, at the time of a coalition government, governor can take situational discretion. So remember all those. Go through the basic content from your Lakshmigan. So I'll be taking some other topics, that is Article 154. Remember this article, Article 154. The executive powers of the state shall be vested with the governor and shall be exercised by him directly or through officers subordinate to him in accordance with the Constitution. First one, Article 154, that is, governor must exercise certain powers, or governor is the executive head of the state. And other basic things includes what are the powers available. There are executive powers, there are legislative powers, there are financial powers, there are judicial powers. I'm not going through all the content, executive, legislative, judicial, financial powers. Just go through these in Lakshmigan. That is very important. The governor's office of governor is very important for 21 prelims. So try to remember all the functions, powers of governor, and also go for the discretion, types of discretions available for governor. There are situational discretion and also constitutional discretion. Okay. Any doubts in governor? Do I need to clarify any of the conduct? Okay. Then next topic is that Consumer Protection Act of 2019. That is also very important. Consumer Protection Act of 2019. Consumer Protection Act. Consumer Protection Act of 2019. Regarding this topic, there will not be a direct question from there is a very less chance that Consumer Protection Act directly asked in your prelims, but you should also learn Consumer Protection Act. That is required for your mains also. And also there are very important changes that was being initiated under Consumer Protection Act of 2019. So try to remember this, try to focus on this. I'll be giving a detailed notes on Consumer Protection Act today itself. So go through that. Understand the difference between the previous 1986 Consumer Protection Act and current 2019 Consumer Protection Act. That is only that is necessary for your prelims examination. So first one is Consumer Protection Act of 1986 does not provide for a regulator. Here in 2019, new regulator was created. Okay, that is Central Consumer Protection Authority, CCPA. Central Consumer Protection Authority was created under 2019 Consumer Protection Act. And previously in 1986, you need to file a petition where seller is located. For example, you brought something from Delhi, or you brought something from a manufacturer located in Delhi. You need to give petition in that court only, or that consumer court only. It was changed for the benefit of consumer. That is, consumers can file a complaint against a seller or a manufacturer in their locality. That is, complainant resides, or where complainant resides. Wherever we work, that is the next change. Place was changed. Another change is that consumer can seek compensation for harm caused by product or service. For example, consider you brought some mobile phone, and mobile phone burnt or exploded, and it caused certain damages to you and yourself and your home equipments, etc. Then you can definitely ask for claims in the under New Act. So claims were, or new claims, or for claims for damages were initiated under, that is, there is a product liability. There is a liability from the manufacturer or seller. And another one, the values of cases first stage, district it became 1 crore, then state level you can quote 1 to 10 crore, and above 10 crore you need to go for a national consumer court. Okay. And these rules also extend to direct selling and e-commerce. Prior to that, in 1986 law, Consumer Protection Act of 1986, you cannot file a case against Flipkart or Amazon or e-commerce. You cannot place a file a case against the Flipkart or Amazon regarding the, or e-commerce's business against the issues. But in 2019, direct and e-commerce's businesses also added under the consumer protection. And finally, there is mediation was initiated. All these final topics are not important for prelims, just remember that. Also, mediation was introduced. Mediation can be initiated for any type of dispute. For example, consider you and Reliance have a case pending for 50 lakhs. Okay, you seek a compensation of 50 lakhs from Reliance for some products, for Jio and all, some products. Prior to that, the case must be finished to get some money. Currently, there can be mediation. Jio, the members of Jio, and you can decide on settling down. You can say that I will return, or I will stay away from the case if you pay 25 lakhs. You can get mediation. So these are the major changes brought under Consumer Protection Act. Remember this. All the ideas were given in your note. Just go through that. At least there is a diagram given in your note that will be shared in your group. At least go through the image that is there in your note. Okay. This is not that important, but there can be a question. You got the point? Any doubts? Okay. And something important, there is a fund, Consumer Welfare Fund. There's a Consumer Welfare Fund created under this CPA 2019. You should also know that Consumer Welfare Fund. Consumer Welfare Fund is also created under Consumer Protection Act of 2019. In this, the fund will be collected from the credit of amount due to unidentifiable consumer. If there is a consumer unidentified by the authorities, then that money, or there is a person who cannot be traced or who cannot collect his money, it will be transferred to CWF, Consumer Welfare Fund. So remember that also. That is the basic thing regarding Consumer Protection Act. This is not that important, but try to remember that. Another one is civil and criminal defamation. Again, there can be a question, a definition question, a definition type of question, in which of the following is related to civil defamation or criminal defamation, or which of the following can be identified as civil defamation or criminal defamation. That will be the question. So understand the definition of civil and criminal defamation, civil or criminal defamation. Understand that also. So basically, defamation is the communication of false statements or that can harm the reputation of an individual, business, product, group, government, etc. That is, defamation is nothing but a process, or defamation is nothing but a communication of a false statement that is not true, that can harm the reputation of an individual or business or government, etc. And the basic thing you need to understand is difference between civil and criminal defamation. That is, civil wrongs tends to provide for a redressal of wrongs by awarding compensation. Okay, civil defamation is that it may not be that serious, or it may not be directly affecting the individual's choices or individual's reputation, but that can cause certain issues. For example, if you are saying that some company is providing very good product and you are using that, and after that you got certain envious or something like that, and you say that this company's product is not that good, and suppose you are very influential in the social media and all, you said that this is very bad, these are the issues, do not buy, then they can cause a civil defamation. And again, criminal defamation is defined as an offense under the IPC, and it says that it is directly providing certain allegation. For example, you say that I killed somebody and that has resulted in losing my reputation, or if you say that some business organization that is allegedly doing something else, that is a false statement. If that is a false statement, there is a chance that criminal defamation. Criminal defamation is something related to that. That is, the issue is that criminal defamation is defined under IPC. At the same time, civil defamation is defined under CRPC, tort law. It is defined under tort law. Okay, so criminal defamation comes under 499 and 500 of IPC, and it says that in Subramanian Swamy versus Union of India case, it approved, that is Subramanian Swamy case, Supreme Court approved the constitutional validity of 499 and 500. They said that defamation, criminal defamation in 499 and 500 does not harm the individual's freedom of speech. Okay, remember that Subramanian Swamy case. And related to this, you should also understand certain articles. There was a tendency by UPSC to ask important articles from, especially from fundamental rights, DPSP, etc., and ask to what it is related. For example, Article 22 or right to get married comes under, or right to freedom of movement, or right to move from one place to Mumbai to Thane, or Mumbai to Pune, or Mumbai to Kerala comes under which article? There may be questions. Article 21, 20, 19. So remember these things. There can be question. So in this, freedom of speech comes under Article 19, and Article 21 there is also a certain balanced. There is a right for reputation. Article 21, right for reputation is there in 21. Article 21, right for reputation of an individual. Reputation of an individual comes under Article 21. Okay, remember that also. Okay, this is related to civil and criminal defamation. You just understand the definition, and also you just go through the articles related to that. And the case related to criminal defamation is that Subramanian Swamy case. In that case, Supreme Court declared that there is a constitutional validity for section 499 and 500. Okay, am I clear? If you have any doubt, please let me know. I hope it is clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next one is sixth schedule state. Sixth schedule state or sixth schedule status. Sixth schedule status. So recently there was demand from Arunachal Pradesh and some other states in Northeast for sixth schedule. So first of all, Arunachal Pradesh does not come under fifth schedule or sixth schedule. Fifth schedule states are primarily Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, then Maharashtra, Odisha, and Rajasthan. Those states in central belt. For example, if this is India, the central region, it primarily lies in the central region from Andhra Pradesh to Rajasthan, and here to Bihar and all. Sorry, not Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, etc. Okay, so these are the fifth schedule states. So Arunachal Pradesh is neither in fifth schedule or in sixth schedule. So Arunachal Pradesh requested to be in sixth schedule. So you should understand two things: what are the states coming under fifth schedule, and also what are the states coming under sixth schedule. For example, in sixth schedule state, we can say that ATM square, that is Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya, Mizoram. Okay, if you are confusing with Mizoram and Manipur or Meghalaya and Manipur, ATM, there is also Manipur is there with them. You can say that no money in ATM square. You can say that no money in ATM square. That is Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. These are the four states that is still there in sixth schedule. Okay, so there is a committee related to sixth schedule, that is Bordoloi committee. These are the facts. Just understand the facts. The idea of sixth schedule can be learned from your Lakshmi. I'm not going to that. I'm just going through the other statements, other important facts related to sixth schedule. That is Bordoloi committee is also related to sixth schedule. That is Bordoloi committee in Constituent Assembly. Actually, it was in Constituent Assembly suggested for the creation of sixth schedule. And basically, you can say that Article 244 Clause 2 and 275 Clause 1. This is also related to sixth schedule. Article 244 Clause 2 and Article 275 1. Okay. Okay, this information you should learn, and the importance of or the changes in this region is that, or the ideas or the importance of sixth schedule state is that there are tribal areas and autonomous districts can be formed in these areas. That is in Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya, and Mizoram, there are autonomous districts, and autonomous district does not come outside the executive authority of state. It comes actually within the executive power of state. It works as an autonomous district under the government only. There is no difference from the executive powers of those states from other states. Actually, autonomous districts or autonomous council comes under the executive power of state only. Okay, remember these facts. This is enough for your sixth schedule. Mostly question will be from sixth schedule state is related to, or which are the states coming under sixth schedule. There will not be any other questions. Okay. Next one is no confidence motion. There is a high chance that no confidence motion will be there in your prelims examination. No confidence motion. Go through no confidence motion. There was multiple no confidence motion in state and central level. So no confidence motion can be introduced in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, or both.
Only
What is your
in
idea?
Lok Sabha.
Yes, Lok Sabha only. Remember, that is the first thing. No confidence motion can be introduced only in Lok Sabha because the government is collectively responsible to Parliament in general and Lok Sabha in particular. That is, generally they are responsible to, particularly they are responsible to Lok Sabha. So no confidence motion can only be introduced in Lok Sabha. Remember that. And Constitution of India does not mention either a confidence or no confidence motion. The Constitution of India does not have a mention of confidence or no confidence motion, but Article 75 says that Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to Lok Sabha. There is no mention of no confidence motion or confidence motion. Only thing is that Article 75 says that Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to state. And another one is that no confidence motion can be admitted in Lok Sabha only when a minimum of 50 members support the House. Minimum 50 members should be supporting the motion. 50 members should be, minimum 50 members should be supporting the motion. And speaker then, if satisfied with the motion or motion's objectives, can allow the motion. And if the motion is passed in the Lok Sabha, the government is bound to vacate the office. Okay. And now conference needs a majority to pass in the House. Just remember that. The basic thing is there is no mention of no conference motion in our constitution. Only Article 75. Article 75 says that the Council of Ministers are collectively, or Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha, and it can be, or no conference motion can be admitted only when there is a minimum of 50 members supporting it. And if speaker is satisfied by the objective and aims of no conference motion, we can allow it. And if it is passed, government is bound to resign or bound to vacate the office. Okay. Any doubt?
Sir, ഈ നോൺ കോൺഫിഡൻസ് മോഷൻ ഇൻട്രൊഡ്യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് ടൈം ഗ്യാപ്പ് എന്തെങ്കിലും പറയുന്നുണ്ടോ? 6 months അങ്ങനെ എന്തെങ്കിലും?
ഇല്ല ഇല്ല, അപ്പം കുറച്ച് കൺവെൻഷൻസ് ഉണ്ട് എന്നേ ഉള്ളു, ഒരു ടൈം ഗ്യാപ്പ് ആയിട്ട് സ്പെസിഫൈ ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല.
ഈ ഗ്രാമപഞ്ചായത്തിനാണെങ്കിൽ 6 months എന്ന് പറയുന്നുണ്ട് വ്യക്തമായിട്ട്. അതും ഇതുപോലെ
റിഗാർഡിംഗ് ഗ്രാമപഞ്ചായത്ത് ദർ ഇസ് സ്പെസിഫിക് പ്രൊവിഷൻസ് ഇൻ, ഇപ്പൊ ഗ്രാമസഭയുടെ കാര്യത്തിൽ അങ്ങനെയുള്ള കാര്യത്തിലൊക്കെ സ്പെസിഫിക് പ്രൊവിഷൻസ് പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇതിന്റെ കാര്യത്തിൽ പറയുന്നില്ല സെൻട്രലിലും സ്റ്റേറ്റിലും. Any other doubt? Okay, next one, Lokpal and Lokayukta. Just go through that also. That is also important. That is, Lokpal and Lokayukta are non-constitutional bodies. They are only statutory bodies. Next one, Lokpal and Lokayukta, they are statutory bodies. That is very important. These constitutional and non-constitutional bodies are very important. Lokpal and Lokayukta. They are statutory in nature. They are statutory bodies. Second one, there are certain changes regarding the Lokpal and Lokayukta. Recently, there was multiple news are there in newspapers related to Lokpal and Lokayukta. So you must understand that the chairperson of Lokpal should be either the former Chief Justice of India or the former Judge of Supreme Court, or an eminent person with impeccable integrity and outstanding ability. Okay, so remember that, just remember that it is statutory. The chairman should be either the former CJI, Chief Justice of India, former Justice of Supreme Court Judge, or eminent personality. Okay, chairman should be either former Chief Justice of India or a former Judge of Supreme Court or an eminent person with impeccable integrity. There are certain fields of working on anti-corruption policy, public administration, vigilance. That is not a requirement. Just remember that former Chief Justice of India, Supreme Court Judge, and third one is a person with impeccable integrity and outstanding ability. That is eminent person. Okay. And out of maximum 8 members, half will be, second one, members. If you say members, there will be 8 members, and out of 8 members, 50% will be from the judicial part, half will be the judicial members, and minimum 50% of the members will be SC, ST, OBC. Okay, backward classes. That is, there are certain criteria. 50% should be judicial members. Again, 50% should be from SCs or ST or OBC. That is backward classes. And the judicial member of Lokpal, either former Judge of Supreme Court or a former Chief Justice of High Court. The members of judicial members of Lokpal can be either the Supreme Court Judge or high court judge, or also in 50% you can add women, etc. Women, minorities, etc. also comes under the 50, next 50%. Okay. So remember these things. This is the composition. These are all these are there in your Lakshmiga. Go through that. And the term of office is that 5 years. Remember that. Okay, that is enough for Lokpal. Just go through the basics. And I also added certain facts related to Lokpal in your notes. Go through that also if needed. But these are the important things that is required for your prelims examination. Okay. And related to Lokayukta, again, it is the state equivalent of Central Lokpal, and every state shall establish a body for known as Lokayukta. And again, the similar is the case of chairman, members, etc. The chairman must be a former High Court Chief Justice or former Supreme Court judge. Okay. In Lokayukta, 1 minute, I will clear this. Lokayukta chairperson should be former Chief Justice of High Court or former Judge of Supreme Court. Okay. And has a tenure of 5 years or fixed tenure on the. And next one, Chief Minister can select a person as the Lokayukta after the consultation with High Court Chief Justice, Speaker of Legislative Assembly, Chairman of Legislative Council, Leader of Opposition, etc. Okay, just go through that. That is all those data is there in your Lakshmiga. Just go through that. This is very important. Just go through the important points. That's all. So remember that I was taking this Lokayukta along with Lokpal. Lokpal was there in news for multiple times. So remember that. That is enough. And there is another topic, that is Lokayukta. Go through the composition and remember the procedure of selection of Lokayukta members. But that is important for your prelims examination. Lokpal and Lokayukta both are important. Okay. Next one is basic structure doctrine. You should understand the definition of basic structure doctrine. Basic structure doctrine. It is judicial in origin. First of all, it is judicial in origin. First of all, it is judicial in origin, and it came into existence with the Keshavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala case, or Keshavananda Bharati case. Normally, it is known as Keshavananda Bharati case. Recently, Keshavananda Bharati died last year. So there can be a question based on basic structure. It is nowhere in Constitution basic structure doctrine is defined. It is defined by the judiciary, and the basic idea of basic structure doctrine is that the Parliament cannot introduce laws that would amend the basic structure of the Constitution, evolved gradually over the time and with many cases. The idea is to preserve the nature of Indian democracy and protect the rights of individuals. Okay, so just go through the basic definition of basic structure doctrine. That is, it is judicial in origin. The primary aim is to protect the democracy and rights, and there are certain important basic structures or very basic structures in Indian Constitution, and that must not be amended or changed. That is the idea of basic structure. Okay, am I clear? Any doubts? So final topic, Government of National Capital Territory, Government of NCT, Delhi. Government of NCT or Government of National Capital Territory, Delhi, Amendment Bill of 2021. There was a bill presented by the central government. Amendment bill introduced by central government. The provisions includes the government, where they changed certain definitions of under the bill. They said that government to mean lieutenant governor. There will not be a question based on this. You just focus on certain amendments, 93rd amendment, etc. go through the Article 239A and AA. Article 239A and AA is there. Just go through that. So here in this amendment, they've introduced that government means lieutenant governor. That is lieutenant governor, or lieutenant governor is the actual government. And they also introduced certain wider discretionary powers, or they widened the discretionary powers of lieutenant governor, and they provided opportunity for lieutenant governor to take certain administrative decisions. For example, legislative assembly shall not make any rule to enable itself or consider matters of day-to-day administration of the capital. That is, for day-to-day administration, it empowered. These amendment empower lieutenant governor. That is the change that has been developed in this Government of NCT of Delhi Amendment Bill of 2021. There will not be a direct question based on this amendment bill. The question will be from Article 239 and 239A, etc. There will be questions. What are the powers of union territories? What you should be learning is that what is union territory? What is the difference between a union territory and the state? And what are the major changes that brought for union territories? And there is another case or another news related to this, that is Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir region. And it is said that it is being converting back to a state. There was discussion based on that. So there will be definitely more. There is a high chance of a question based on union territories or comparison between state and union territories. So learn that also. This is the current affairs basics, Government of NCT of Delhi, etc. You may not be having a direct question from Government of NCT of Delhi Amendment Bill, but there will be a question on union territories, or what are the changes, or what are the changes that recently brought in union territories. There can be a question on number of union territories. Definitely there will be a question. Okay, so remember these things. These are the important first part of current affairs. Next day we will be compiling the remaining topics regarding Indian polity. Next class will be on Thursday. You will get the intimation in your group. I hope everybody is in your home, in the group. Any doubts regarding any of these topics? I hope I am clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's it for today. There will be another class on Thursday, same time, 2 p.m. Weekly there will be 3 classes for our value addition classes. Next day for geography and all, we'll be taking some other important topics. For Indian polity, economics, etc., we'll be taking current affairs, important current affairs, basics, etc. Okay, so see you again on Thursday. I'll be taking Indian polity, second part of the current affair, and we will finish off till June 2020 on Thursday and Saturday. Okay, thank you all. See you on Thursday.